Get your black, dirty skin away from that counter. Officer John Brooks' voice explodes through the pharmacy aisle as he shoves 72-year-old Gregory Williams against the wall, causing the man's prescription bag to burst open. Pills scatter. His walking cane spins across the floor. His reading glasses crack, and the sharp noise stops every customer mid-step. "Sir, I'm just getting drugs for my wife," Gregory whispers, clutching his ribs. "Oh, shut up, Grandpa. If it's not the young ones causing trouble, it's the old ones. Always some sob story. Today it's sick wife. Tomorrow it's drugs for your dying cat." Brooks grips Gregory's thin wrist with unnecessary force. A crowd forms. Phones start recording. Employees freeze in disbelief as a respected senior is handled like a threat. Brooks doesn't see a gentle retiree trying to care for his ill spouse. He sees numbers. He sees quota. He sees a target. But as he slams cold handcuffs around Gregory's wrist, he has no idea who he just manhandled. No idea that this frail black man once investigated corruption cases that terrified entire precincts. And in less than 10 minutes, Gregory Williams will say one sentence that detonates Officer Brooks's entire career. Hold up. Before we dive deeper into this powerful story, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Speak Black Stories brings you real, raw narratives every single day, and you don't want to miss what happens next. The automatic doors of Riverside Pharmacy whispered open as Gregory Williams stepped inside, his mahogany cane tapping a gentle rhythm against the tile floor. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across aisles of medicines and household goods. Gregory moved slowly, deliberately, each step measured by 72 years of careful living and the arthritis that reminded him of those years every morning. He approached the pharmacy counter at the back, his prescription slip folded neatly in the breast pocket of his cardigan. The pharmacist, a young woman named Maria who always remembered his name, looked up and smiled. "Mr. Williams, how's Mrs. Williams doing today?" "Not well, Maria. Not well at all." Gregory's voice carried the weight of sleepless nights and worry. The doctor adjusted her heart medication again. "Says this new one might help with the fluid retention." Maria nodded sympathetically and reached for the prescription slip. "Let me check if it's ready. It should be." Gregory waited, his hands folded atop his cane, watching the ordinary ballet of a neighborhood pharmacy on a Tuesday afternoon. A mother with 2 children debating candy choices. An elderly couple squinting at vitamin labels. A young man picking up antibiotics. Normal. Safe. Familiar. The bell above the entrance chimed. Officer John Brooks entered with the swagger of a man who wore his badge like armor and his authority like a weapon. His eyes scanned the pharmacy with predatory assessment, cataloging faces, noting demographics, calculating opportunities. Gregory barely glanced his way, focused instead on Maria as she returned with a white paper bag. "Here you are, Mr. Williams. Make sure she takes it with food and—" "Hey!" Brooks's voice cracked through the quiet like a gunshot. "Hey, you!" Gregory looked up, confused. Brooks was staring directly at him. "Sir, you talking to me?" Gregory asked, his voice soft and polite, the same tone he'd used for 40 years teaching high school history. Brooks strode toward the counter, his hand resting on his belt near his service weapon. "Yeah, I'm talking to you. What are you doing here?" The question made no sense. Gregory blinked, his mind struggling to process the hostility radiating from this stranger in uniform. "I'm picking up medication for my wife, officer," She's very sick. Get your black dirty skin away from that counter. Brooks' words dropped like stones into water, creating ripples of shocked silence throughout the pharmacy. Time seemed to fracture. Gregory felt his body moving backward, not by choice but by force, as Brooks's hands shoved him against the wall near the blood pressure machine. The prescription bag flew from Maria's hands, white pills scattering across the floor like scattered pearls. His cane clattered away, spinning in a slow arc. His reading glasses, the ones his wife had given him for their anniversary, struck the tile and cracked. Pain bloomed in Gregory's ribs where they met the wall. Sharp, real, humiliating. Sir, please, I'm just getting drugs for my wife. Gregory managed, his breath coming in short gasps. Oh, shut up, Grandpa. Brooks's face was inches away now, his breath hot and coffee stale. If it's not the young ones causing trouble, it's the old ones. Always some sob story. Today it's sick wife. Tomorrow it's drugs for your dying cat. Gregory's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not for picking up prescription medication. Not for existing while black and 72 and trying to care for his dying wife. Brooks grabbed Gregory's wrist, twisting it behind his back with unnecessary force. Gregory heard gasps around him. Phones emerged from pockets. Maria stood behind the counter, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. You're coming with me, Brooks announced loudly, performing now for an audience. Drug diversion, prescription fraud. We've been watching this pharmacy for weeks. The lies came so easily, so smoothly. Brooks had clearly done this before. As the cold metal handcuffs clicked around his thin wrists, Gregory felt something deeper than physical pain. He felt the weight of every indignity his ancestors had endured, every justified fear his parents had warned him about, every reason his wife begged him to just stay home, stay safe, stay invisible. But Gregory Williams was done being invisible. His eyes met Brooks for just a moment, and in that moment, something shifted. Not in fear, not in submission, in recognition. Because Gregory had seen men like Brooks before. He had investigated them. He had ended their careers. And as Brooks dragged him toward the door past shocked customers and recording phones, Gregory made a decision. Today, silence would not keep him safe. Today, he would speak. The back seat of the patrol car smelled of industrial cleaner and fear. Gregory sat with his hands cuffed behind him, the metal biting into his wrists, his shoulder pressed against the hard plastic seat. Through the window, he watched Maria standing in the pharmacy doorway, her phone pressed to her ear, presumably calling someone. His wife, perhaps, or maybe the police, though the irony of that wasn't lost on him. Brooks climbed into the driver's seat, his movements aggressive, triumphant. He grabbed the radio handset with the satisfaction of a hunter who'd bagged his prize. Dispatch, this is Brooks. I've got a 1015 at Riverside Pharmacy. Elderly black male, prescription fraud and possible drug diversion. Bringing him in now. Gregory listened to the lies flow like rehearsed lines. The radio crackled back with acknowledgement. Brooks hung the handset and adjusted his rearview mirror, catching Gregory's eyes in the reflection. You picked the wrong day to play pharmacy roulette, old man, Brooks said, starting the engine. You people think you can game the system, get pills to sell on the street. Not on my watch. You people. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Gregory took a slow breath, feeling his heart hammering against his ribs. He thought of his wife, Evelyn, waiting at home for medication that wouldn't arrive. He thought of the humiliation he'd just endured. He thought of the teaching career that had taught him patience, and the other career, the one that had taught him something far more useful: power. "Officer Brooks," Gregory said quietly, his voice steady despite the pain radiating through his chest. "May I ask you something?" Brooks snorted. "You can ask. Doesn't mean I'll answer. How long have you been with the department? What's it to you?" "Just curious." Gregory shifted slightly, trying to ease the pressure on his wrists. "You see, I spent a lot of years working with law enforcement. Different capacity, of course. I was wondering if our paths might have crossed." Brooks glanced in the rearview mirror, suspicion flickering across his face. "What are you talking about, old man?" "Do you remember about 8 years ago?" Gregory continued, his tone conversational, almost pleasant. "When the Georgia State Accountability Commission opened investigations into 3 precincts in this county? Misconduct allegations, falsified reports, quota systems that encouraged officers to target vulnerable populations." The car slowed slightly. Brooks's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "One of those precincts was the North District headquarters," Gregory said, "where you were stationed as a rookie officer. The investigation focused on a sergeant named Callahan and 4 officers under his command who were systematically falsifying arrest reports to meet performance metrics." Brooks' jaw clenched. "Lots of investigations happen. Doesn't mean anything." "This one meant quite a lot, actually," Gregory replied. 3 officers lost their badges. 1 went to prison. Sergeant Callahan took early retirement rather than face charges. But there were 2 names in that file that were never fully investigated. 2 rookie officers who seemed to learn all the wrong lessons from their mentor. The patrol car pulled over abruptly onto the shoulder of the road. Brooks threw the gear shift into park and twisted around in his seat, his face flushed. "Who the hell are you?" Gregory met his eyes without flinching. "My name is Gregory Williams. Until my retirement 5 years ago, I was the Chief Ethics Investigator for the Georgia State Accountability Commission. I personally oversaw 73 investigations into law enforcement misconduct. I closed 48 cases that resulted in terminations, 27 that resulted in criminal charges, and I left 15 cases open due to insufficient evidence." The color drained from Brooks' face. "Officer Brooks, you've arrested the man who opened file 2017-083-ND. Your name appears on page 47, connected to Sergeant Callahan's unit. The case was marked inconclusive because you and another officer transferred to different districts before we could complete witness interviews. But the file was never closed. It was marked pending additional evidence." Brooks's breathing had become audible, rapid, and shallow. "I remember you," Gregory continued, his voice gaining strength. "I remember sitting in an interview room watching video of you entering false information into an arrest report. I remember reading witness statements about how you treated elderly residents in the Oakmont neighborhood. I remember recommending that your case be escalated for criminal investigation. That was years ago. Nothing came of it. Because Callahan's attorney made a deal. Everyone went quiet. Cases got buried." Gregory leaned forward slightly, despite the pain. "But Officer Brooks, today you made a crucial mistake. You gave me new evidence. You assaulted me. You falsified charges against me. You violated my civil rights in front of witnesses with video cameras. And you did it while I was engaged in a completely legal activity." Brooks's hand moved toward his radio, then stopped. His mind was clearly racing, calculating, trying to find an exit from the trap that had just sprung shut around him. You think anyone's going to believe a bitter old black man over a police officer? Brooks said, but his voice lacked conviction. I think, Gregory said calmly, that when I contact investigator Rachel Chen, who took over my cases when I retired and who has been very interested in patterns of elder abuse by law enforcement, she's going to be very, very interested in this conversation. I think when she pulls your arrest records for the past 3 years and analyzes them for demographic patterns, she's going to find something troubling. I think when she interviews the elderly residents you've targeted, she's going to find a pattern. Gregory paused, letting each word land with precision. And I think when she reopens file 2017-083-ND with fresh evidence, the statute of limitations on your civil rights violations won't have expired. Conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law carries a 10-year statute. We're well within that window. Silence filled the car, broken only by the distant sound of traffic on the highway. Brooks's hands were shaking now. What do you want? I want, Gregory said, his voice soft but unyielding, my wife's medication. I want to go home. And I want you to understand that what you did to me today, you've been doing to people who couldn't fight back. People who didn't have my background. People who were just afraid. I could make this all disappear, Brooks said desperately. I could say there was a misunderstanding. Let you go, we forget this happened. No, Gregory interrupted. We don't forget. That's exactly the problem. Too many people forgot. Too many people stayed silent. Too many officers like you learned that there are populations you can target with impunity. Gregory sat back, exhausted but resolute. Take me to the station, Officer Brooks. Book me on whatever false charges you've concocted. But know this. By tomorrow morning, Internal Affairs will have a formal complaint. By tomorrow afternoon, the State Commission will have reopened their investigation. And by the end of the week, every arrest you've made in the past 3 years will be under review. Brooks stared at him, the reality of his situation crystallizing like ice. You came to that pharmacy looking for an easy target, Gregory said quietly. Someone vulnerable, someone who wouldn't fight back. But today, you arrested exactly the wrong person. The patrol car sat on the shoulder of the road as the sun moved lower in the sky, and in the back seat, a 72-year-old man with handcuffed wrists and cracked glasses had just detonated a bomb that would reshape an entire department. Brooks reached for his radio with a trembling hand, and Gregory Williams waited, knowing that the next hours would be difficult, but that silence, his silence, and the silence of too many others, was finally, irrevocably broken. By the time Gregory was processed and released from the police station 4 hours later, charges mysteriously dropped without explanation. His face was already on 10,000 screens across the state. The video started at second 7. That's when Brooks's hand made contact with Gregory's chest, shoving him into the wall. The camera shook slightly as the person recording gasped, but it captured everything. The pills scattering like white confetti, the cane clattering across tile, the glasses cracking against the floor, and most damning of all, it captured audio. Get your black dirty skin away from that counter. The words were crystal clear. A college student named Marcus Chen had been in the pharmacy picking up allergy medication when it happened. He posted the video to Twitter at 2:47 p.m. with the caption, 72-year-old black man assaulted by cop at Riverside Pharmacy for picking up his sick wife's medication. This is America. By 3:15 p.m., the video had 12,000 views. By 4:00 p.m., it had been shared 800 times. By 6:00 p.m., when Gregory finally arrived home in a taxi, his own car still parked at the pharmacy, The video had exploded across every social media platform. 1 million views, 20,000 shares, and climbing. Evelyn Williams sat in her recliner by the window, oxygen tubes in her nose, her frail body wrapped in the quilted blanket Gregory had bought her last Christmas. When she heard his key in the lock, she tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. "Greg?" Her voice was weak, strained. "Greg, where have you been?" Maria called and said, "Oh my God, what happened to your face?" Gregory's cheek bore a purple bruise where it had struck the wall. His wrists showed red marks from the handcuffs. He moved slowly into the living room, each step betraying the pain in his ribs. "Evie, I'm fine. I'm okay." He knelt beside her chair, taking her trembling hands in his. "There was an incident at the pharmacy. Maria said a police officer arrested you. She said he hurt you." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "And my medication. Greg, I didn't get my medication." The guilt hit him like a physical blow. All of this, the confrontation, the arrest, the stand he'd taken, and his wife still suffered for it. "I'll get it tomorrow, sweetheart. First thing in the morning. I promise." "But the doctor said it's critical, that if I miss even one dose." She broke into coughing, her whole body shaking with the effort. Gregory held her, feeling her fragile frame against him, counting the seconds until the coughing subsided. When she finally caught her breath, her lips had a bluish tint that terrified him. "I'll call the pharmacy," he said, reaching for his phone. "They'll have an emergency protocol. We'll get it tonight." But when he unlocked his phone, he found 63 missed calls. Texts flooded his screen, voicemails stacked up like cordwood. And then he saw it. A text from his daughter, Nicole, with a link. "Dad, are you okay? This is everywhere. Call me." He clicked the link. His own face stared back at him from the video, frozen in a moment of shock as Brooks shoved him into the wall. The view counter showed 2.3 million. By 8:00 p.m., the local news had picked up the story. Channel 7 ran it as their lead segment. Tonight, disturbing video shows an elderly man violently arrested at a local pharmacy, the anchor announced, her face grave. Warning, some viewers may find this footage upsetting. They played the video. Then they played it again in slow motion. The man in the video has been identified as 72-year-old Gregory Williams, a retired educator. According to witnesses, Williams was simply picking up heart medication for his ailing wife when Officer John Brooks of the Metro Police Department confronted him. What happened next has sparked outrage across the community. They cut to an interview with Maria, the pharmacist, her face still puffy from crying. "Mr. Williams is one of the kindest people I know," she said, her voice breaking. "He comes in every week for his wife's medications. He knows my children's names. He helped my son with his history homework once. And to see him treated like that, thrown against the wall like he was some kind of criminal, it was horrifying." The news segment included a statement from the Metro Police Department. "We are aware of the incident involving Officer Brooks and are conducting an internal review. Officer Brooks has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation." Administrative leave? Paid vacation? Gregory thought bitterly. But then the news anchor said something that made Gregory sit up straighter. In a surprising development, we've learned that Gregory Williams is not just a retired teacher. According to sources, Williams spent 15 years as the Chief Ethics Investigator for the Georgia State Accountability Commission, where he oversaw dozens of investigations into police misconduct. This detail has added another layer to an already complex story. The camera cut to a reporter standing outside the police station. Questions are being raised tonight about whether Officer Brooks knew who he was arresting, and if so, whether this incident represents retaliation for Williams' past work investigating police misconduct. The State Commission has declined to comment, but sources tell us they've received multiple requests to reopen old cases that Williams worked on. Gregory's phone rang again. This time he answered. "Mr. Williams, this is Investigator Rachel Chen from the State Accountability Commission." Gregory closed his eyes. Rachel. He'd mentored her during her first year on the job, taught her how to read between the lines of police reports, how to spot patterns of abuse masked by procedure. "Hello, Rachel. I saw the video." Her voice was controlled, professional, but he could hear the anger beneath it. "I need you to tell me everything, and then I need you to let me help." Gregory glanced at Evelyn, who had dozed off in her chair, her breathing labored and uneven. "Rachel, my wife needs her medication. That's the priority right now." "I've already handled that," Rachel said. "I called Riverside Pharmacy myself. They're sending an emergency courier to your house within the hour. The medication is on me. Consider it a gift for all those late nights you spent teaching me this job." Gregory felt unexpected tears prick his eyes. "Thank you. Now tell me about Brooks." Gregory recounted everything. The confrontation, the arrest, the conversation in the patrol car, Brooks's reaction when he learned who Gregory was. Rachel listened without interrupting, and he could hear her typing notes. "He was in Callahan's unit," she said when he finished. "I remember that case. You had suspicions about 2 rookies, but we could never prove they were actively participating in the fraud scheme. Brooks was one of them. And now he's handed us everything we need." Rachel's voice took on an edge Gregory recognized. She was in hunting mode. "Greg, by tomorrow morning, I'll have pulled every arrest Brooks has made in the past 5 years. I'm going to analyze them for patterns, demographics, locations, types of charges, case outcomes. If he's been targeting vulnerable populations, it'll show up in the data." "He has been," Gregory said quietly. I could see it in his eyes. He knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't his first time. "Then we're going to find the others. Every person he's done this to. Every falsified report. Every violation." She paused. "But Greg, I need to warn you. This is going to get bigger before it gets better. The video is everywhere. By tomorrow, you're going to have reporters on your lawn. The department is going to try to spin this. Maybe paint you as someone with an axe to grind." "Let them try," Gregory said. "I've got the truth and I've got evidence." "What about your wife? How is she?" Gregory looked at Evelyn, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. "Struggling. This stress isn't helping her condition." "I'm sorry this happened to you both," Rachel said softly. "But I'm not sorry you're finally letting me finish what you started. Brooks and men like him. They've been getting away with this for too long because people were afraid to speak up." A soft knock came at the door. Through the window, Gregory saw a courier holding a white pharmacy bag. "The medication's here," he said. "Thank you, Rachel. Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be intense. But Greg, I'm glad you didn't stay silent." After he hung up, Gregory collected the medication and gently woke Evelyn. He helped her take her pill with water, then settled her into bed, tucking the quilt around her. "The news said you were famous now," she murmured sleepily. "My famous husband. I'm not famous, sweetheart. I just had a bad day." "No," she said, her hand finding his. "You had a brave day. I heard what that man said to you on the video. I heard how he talked to you, and you didn't let him make you small." Gregory kissed her forehead. Rest. Now. But as he sat in the darkened living room, his laptop open, watching the view counter on the video tick steadily upward, 3.1 million, 3.2 million, 3.3 million. Gregory understood that Rachel was right. This was going to get much bigger. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Williams, this is Keisha Morrison from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I'd like to talk to you about your experience with Officer Brooks and your time at the State Commission. This story is bigger than one incident. Please call me. Then another text, this one from a local civil rights attorney. Mr. Williams, we need to talk about representation. What happened to you is part of a systemic problem. And another from a community organizer. Sir, we're planning a town hall about police accountability. We need your voice. Gregory set the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, a news van was already parking across the street. Tomorrow, he thought, watching a reporter emerge with a camera crew. Tomorrow, it all begins. But tonight, Evelyn had her medication, and she was breathing easier, and that was enough. For now, that was enough. Keisha Morrison had been a journalist for 17 years, long enough to recognize when a story had layers that needed peeling back. The video of Gregory Williams being assaulted at Riverside Pharmacy had already gone viral, but Keisha saw something others were missing. This wasn't just about one bad cop having a bad day. This was about a pattern, a system, a strategy. She sat in her cluttered office at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution at 6:00 a.m., 3 empty coffee cups already littering her desk, her computer screen split between multiple windows. On one side, the viral video, which she'd watched 23 times, noting every detail. On the other, Officer John Brooks's public records. What she found made her reach for her phone. Mr. Williams, this is Keisha Morrison. I left you a message last night. I know you're probably overwhelmed right now, but I need 30 minutes of your time. What happened to you wasn't random. Please call me back. She hung up and returned to her research. Brooks had been with the Metro Police Department for 9 years. His arrest record showed 287 arrests over that period. Keisha pulled up a database she'd built over years of reporting. Demographic data, neighborhoods, types of charges. She began entering Brooks' arrests one by one. The pattern emerged within the first 50 entries. 73% of his arrests were in 3 specific neighborhoods: Oakmont, Riverside Heights, and Pinewood Gardens. All 3 had predominantly black populations. All 3 had high percentages of residents over 65. Keisha sat back in her chair. "Oh, you son of a bitch," she whispered. She dug deeper. Of Brooks' 287 arrests, 127 involved people over the age of 60. The charges? Prescription fraud, drug diversion, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest. She cross-referenced with court records. Of those 127 cases, 104 were dismissed or resulted in acquittals. The other 23 resulted in plea deals, usually elderly defendants accepting probation rather than face the stress and expense of trial. 104 dismissed cases. That wasn't just a pattern. That was a hunting ground. Her phone rang. Gregory Williams. "Mr. Williams, thank you for calling back." "Ms. Morrison, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure I want to be in the news right now. My wife is very ill and—" "I understand, and I respect that," Keisha interrupted gently. "But I need to show you something. Can I email you a spreadsheet?" A pause. "A spreadsheet? Please, just look at it and then decide if you want to talk." 5 minutes later, her phone rang again. Gregory's voice was different now. Harder. Focused. Where did you get this data? Public records. Court filings, arrest reports. Mr. Williams, Officer Brooks has arrested 127 elderly people in 9 years. 82% of those arrests resulted in no conviction. That's not law enforcement. That's systematic targeting. She heard Gregory breathing on the other end, processing. Can you prove he knew these charges wouldn't stick? Gregory asked. Not yet, but I can prove he kept making the same arrests with the same outcomes. That suggests either catastrophic incompetence or deliberate strategy. And given your background investigating police misconduct, I'm betting you can help me figure out which one. Ms. Morrison, Keisha, please. Keisha, Gregory continued, if I talk to you, this becomes bigger. The department will push back. They'll try to discredit me. Say I have an agenda for my old job. They'll do that anyway, Keisha said bluntly. The question is whether you want the truth told completely, or whether you want the narrative controlled by the people who are trying to protect Brooks. Another pause. Then, I'll meet with you, but not at my house. My wife doesn't need the stress. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street, 3 blocks from you. The Grindhouse. I'll be there at 10 o'clock a.m. And Mr. Williams, bring anything you remember about that old investigation into Brooks's unit. File numbers, names, anything. The Grindhouse was a neighborhood institution. Exposed brick, mismatched furniture, the smell of fresh roasted coffee beans. Gregory arrived at 9:55 a.m., walking slowly with his cane. Keisha recognized him immediately from the video, though in person, he carried himself with a quiet dignity the camera hadn't fully captured. She stood as he approached, extending her hand. Mr. Williams, thank you for coming. They settled into a corner booth, away from other customers. Keisha had brought printouts of everything she'd compiled: arrest records, demographic breakdowns, court outcomes, even a map showing where Brooks' arrests were concentrated. Gregory studied the documents in silence, his reading glasses. New ones, Keisha noticed, replacing the pair broken in the assault, perched on his nose. His finger traced the columns of data, and she could see his investigator's mind working, making connections. How long did this take you? He asked finally. All night, but I've been tracking bad policing patterns for years. Once you know what to look for, it jumps out at you. She leaned forward. Mr. Williams, you said in the patrol car that you'd investigated Brooks's unit years ago. What did you find? Gregory set down the papers. We found a sergeant named Callahan who had created an incentive system. Officers who made the most arrests got preferential assignments, better equipment, recommendations for promotion. But the metrics didn't account for whether the arrests were legitimate. It just counted numbers. So they started making arrests they knew wouldn't stick. Exactly. Target vulnerable people who wouldn't fight back. Elderly folks, people with disabilities, anyone who seemed unlikely to hire a lawyer or file a complaint. Make the arrest, get credit for the numbers, move on. If the charges got dropped later, that was the prosecutor's problem, not theirs. And Brooks was part of that unit. He was a rookie then, learning from Callahan. We suspected he was involved, but we couldn't prove it. He transferred before we could complete the investigation. Gregory's jaw tightened. I've spent 5 years in retirement wondering if I should have pushed harder on that case. If I'd done my job better, maybe he wouldn't have been on the street to hurt all these people. Keisha shook her head. That's not on you. The system protected him. The department let him transfer instead of firing him. They chose to keep a bad cop rather than deal with the liability. Her phone buzzed. An email notification. She glanced at it, and her eyes widened. Mr. Williams, I have to take this. She opened her laptop and read quickly, her expression darkening. I put out a call yesterday on social media, asking if anyone else had negative encounters with Officer Brooks. I just got a response from a woman named Dorothy Hayes. She's 76 years old. Brooks arrested her 14 months ago for prescription irregularities. The charges were dropped, but Keisha looked up. She says she has 5 friends who were also arrested by Brooks. All elderly, all black, all in the same neighborhood. Gregory's hands clenched on his cane. Where does she live? Oakmont. That was in the original investigation, Gregory said quietly. Oakmont was where Callahan's unit operated most frequently. It's an older neighborhood, lots of long-time residents who remember segregation, who were raised to be afraid of police, perfect victims. Keisha was already typing a response. I'm setting up a meeting with her. Will you come? Yes. Over the next hour, 7 more emails arrived. 7 more elderly residents with stories about Officer Brooks. One man, 81-year-old Robert Chen, described being arrested outside a CVS pharmacy for suspicious behavior. He'd been waiting for his prescription to be filled. The charges were dropped after 2 weeks in legal limbo that cost him $1,200 in attorney fees. A woman named Patricia Owens, 74, had been arrested in her own driveway for disorderly conduct when Brooks saw her arguing with a neighbor about a property line. She spent 6 hours in jail before her daughter, an attorney, got her released. No charges were ever filed. Each story followed the same pattern. Elderly, black, arrested on flimsy pretenses, charges dropped or dismissed, but not before causing stress, expense, and humiliation. He's been doing this for years, Keisha said, her voice tight with anger. How did no one notice? People noticed, Gregory replied. But who do you complain to when the police are the ones hurting you? These folks probably filed complaints that went nowhere. The department investigated itself and found no wrongdoing. That's how it always works. Keisha's phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. This is Keisha Morrison. Ms. Morrison, my name is Detective Sarah Park from Internal Affairs. I understand you've been contacting citizens about Officer Brooks. I need to advise you that there's an ongoing investigation, and your interference could compromise. Detective Park, Keisha interrupted coolly. I'm a journalist doing my job. If your investigation was thorough, you'd already know about the 127 elderly people Officer Brooks has arrested with an 82% dismissal rate. You'd already know about his pattern of targeting specific neighborhoods. But since you're calling me to ask me to back off, I'm guessing you didn't know. Which means your investigation isn't very thorough, is it? Silence on the line. If you'd like to provide a statement for my article, I'm happy to include the department's perspective, Keisha continued. Otherwise, I have work to do. She hung up before Park could respond. Gregory was watching her with something like approval. You're going to make enemies. I already have enemies. Comes with the job. She pulled up a fresh document on her laptop. Mr. Williams, I want to write a comprehensive investigation. Not just about what happened to you, but about Brooks's entire career. About how the system enabled him. About every person he hurt. And I want to connect it to that old investigation you worked on. Show that this isn't new. That the department knew they had a problem and chose to ignore it. That's going to take time. I have time. The question is, will you work with me? I need your expertise, your knowledge of how these investigations work, your credibility. You're not just a victim. You're the one person who can explain how this pattern fits into a larger systemic failure. Gregory looked down at the printouts spread across the table. Names, dates, lives disrupted by one officer's calculated cruelty. Then he looked out the window at the neighborhood where he'd lived for 30 years, where Evelyn was probably watching daytime TV and worrying about him, where people like Dorothy Hayes and Robert Chen lived, in quiet fear of the very people meant to protect them. "My wife needs me home by lunch," he said finally. "She gets anxious if I'm gone too long." Keisha started to gather her papers, disappointed. "But," Gregory continued, "I can give you 3 hours every afternoon. And I still have contacts at the State Commission who might be willing to talk off the record. If we're going to do this, we do it right. We document everything. We corroborate every claim. We build a case so airtight that the department can't spin their way out of it." Keisha smiled. "Mr. Williams, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful investigation." "Call me Gregory," he said, extending his hand. They shook on it, and in that moment, Keisha knew this story was going to be bigger than either of them imagined. Brooks was just the visible symptom of a deeper disease, and together, they were going to expose all of it. Her phone buzzed again. Another email, this one from a whistleblower account. Anonymous. "I'm a Metro PD officer. I've worked with Brooks. You need to know about the quota system. Call me." Keisha showed the email to Gregory. His expression hardened. "It's still going on," he said. "Callahan's gone, but the system he built is still in place." "Then let's tear it down," Keisha replied. And with that, 2 people, a retired investigator and a determined journalist, began the work that would ultimately expose not just one corrupt officer, but an entire culture of predatory policing that had hidden in plain sight for nearly a decade. The Georgia State Accountability Commission occupied the 3rd floor of a nondescript government building on Peachtree Street. Gregory hadn't been inside in 5 years, but when he walked through the glass doors with Keisha beside him, the muscle memory returned. The smell of industrial carpet and copy machine toner, the hum of fluorescent lights, the weight of files stacked on every available surface. Rachel Chen met them in the lobby, her ID badge swinging from a lanyard as she approached. She was 34 now, no longer the nervous rookie Gregory had trained, but a sharp investigator with a reputation for relentlessness. "Gregory," she said warmly, embracing him. Then she turned to Keisha. "Ms. Morrison, I've read your work. You broke that story about the Atlanta jail conditions 3 years ago. And you closed the case that followed," Keisha replied. 2 wardens fired, if I remember correctly. 3. 1 resigned before I could recommend termination." Rachel gestured toward the elevator. "Let's go to my office. What I need to show you isn't for public viewing." They rode up in silence. Rachel's office was organized chaos. Whiteboards covered with flowcharts and timelines, file boxes labeled with case numbers, a coffee maker that looked like it had been working overtime. She closed the door and pulled down the blinds. "Before I show you this," Rachel said, "I need to confirm something. Gregory, are you sure you want to reopen this case? Once we pull the file, once we start making official inquiries, there's no putting it back in the box." "I'm sure," Gregory said. "I've had 5 years to think about the cases I left unfinished. This one haunted me." Rachel nodded and pulled a banker's box from her closet, blowing dust off the lid. "File 2017-083-ND, the Callahan investigation." She set it on her desk and opened it. Inside were hundreds of pages, interview transcripts, arrest records, internal memos, surveillance logs. Gregory's own handwriting appeared on sticky notes marking key sections. "I pulled this yesterday after we spoke," Rachel said. "I've spent the last 18 hours rereading everything. Gregory, you were right about Brooks. Look at this." She spread several documents across her desk. One was an internal memo dated March 2017 from Sergeant Callahan to his unit. Monthly performance reviews will prioritize officers demonstrating proactive enforcement. Target areas include Oakmont, Riverside Heights, and Pinewood Gardens. Focus on quality of life crimes and prescription irregularities. Minimize paperwork time. Efficiency is key. Quality of life crimes, Keisha said, reading over Rachel's shoulder. That's code for targeting poor people for existing. And prescription irregularities, Gregory added. Gave them cover to arrest anyone at a pharmacy. Just claim you suspected fraud. Rachel pulled out another document. Here's where it gets interesting. This is a witness statement from Officer Linda Martinez, who worked in Callahan's unit. She was granted immunity in exchange for testimony. Gregory remembered Martinez, a young officer who'd seemed genuinely disturbed by what she witnessed. She'd been the breakthrough that cracked the case open. Keisha read the highlighted section aloud. Sergeant Callahan told us we needed to maintain numbers. He said elderly targets were ideal because they rarely filed complaints and usually just wanted the situation to go away. He specifically mentioned that Black seniors in certain neighborhoods were low-risk arrests because they were afraid of the system and wouldn't fight back. The room fell silent. That's explicit targeting, Keisha said. That's not just bad policing. That's conspiracy to violate civil rights. Rachel nodded grimly. And here's the worst part. Look who was present at the meeting where Callahan said this. She pointed to a list of names at the bottom of the statement. Gregory's finger found it immediately. Officer John Brooks. Martinez testified he was there. Rachel continued. He heard the strategy. He participated in the arrests that followed. But when we tried to interview him, he'd already transferred to the South District. His new captain blocked our access, claimed Brooks was essential personnel and couldn't be spared for interviews. By the time we pushed through the bureaucracy, Callahan had taken his retirement deal, and the case lost momentum. Why didn't you pursue it anyway? Keisha asked. Politics, Rachel said bitterly. The commission was getting pressure from the mayor's office. There was an election coming up. Nobody wanted headlines about systematic police racism, so they let me close the case with Callahan's resignation and penalties for 3 officers. Brooks and 1 other officer, Marcus DeLuca, slipped through. Gregory picked up another document from the file. His own notes, written in the margins. Brooks, 20 arrests in targeted neighborhoods, 17 dismissed. Pattern consistent with strategy. Recommend escalation. I knew, Gregory said quietly. I knew he was doing exactly what Callahan taught him, and I couldn't prove it enough to stop him. You didn't fail, Gregory, Rachel said firmly. The system failed. The department protected him by moving him around, and after the case closed, he kept operating the same way because he learned he could get away with it. Keisha was taking notes rapidly. What happened to the other officer? DeLuca? Rachel pulled up something on her computer. Marcus DeLuca left the force in 2019. According to exit paperwork, he took a job with a private security company. But I did some digging yesterday. Want to know where he works now? Where? Gregory asked. He's head of security at Mercy General Hospital. Specifically, he oversees security at their pharmacy and prescription fulfillment center. The implication hung in the air like smoke. So he's still in a position to target vulnerable people accessing medications, Keisha said. And still no oversight, Rachel added. Private security doesn't have the same accountability standards as police. Gregory stood and walked to the window, looking out over the Atlanta skyline. 9 years. 9 years of Brooks and DeLuca operating with impunity, targeting elderly Black citizens, knowing exactly what they were doing, and knowing no one would stop them. "What do we need to reopen this officially?" he asked, not turning around. Rachel consulted her notes. "New evidence of ongoing criminal behavior. We have that with your arrest. Evidence connecting the old case to current activity. We have that with Brooks' arrest patterns. And we need witnesses willing to go on record." "I've got 8 so far," Keisha said, "and more coming forward every day since the video went viral. Dorothy Hayes, Robert Chen, Patricia Owens, they're all willing to testify." "Then I'm reopening file 2017-083-ND as of today," Rachel declared. "I'm also opening a new file, 2025-043-SD, to investigate Officer Brooks's activities from 2017 to present. And I'm opening an ancillary inquiry into Marcus DeLuca's conduct at Mercy General." She pulled out a fresh legal pad and began writing. "Gregory, I need you to make a formal statement about your arrest. Every detail. What Brooks said, how he acted, what he told you in the car." "I can do that. Keisha, I need your research. All of it, every arrest record, every pattern you found. It'll be part of the official investigation file. You'll have it by end of day." Rachel looked between them. "And I need both of you to be prepared for what comes next. When the department finds out I've reopened this case, they're going to fight. They'll claim I'm biased because Gregory was my mentor. They'll say the timing is suspicious. They'll try to paint this as a personal vendetta. Let them try," Gregory said, turning from the window. "Everything we do is documented. Everything is evidence-based. They can question our motives, but they can't dispute our findings." A knock at the door interrupted them. Rachel opened it to find a junior investigator, a young man named Thomas, holding a folder. "Sorry to interrupt, but you said to bring you anything related to Brooks. This just came through from records." Rachel took the folder and opened it. Her expression darkened as she read. "What is it?" Gregory asked. "Complaint filed by Dorothy Hayes in October 2023. She reported Officer Brooks for unlawful arrest and harassment. It was investigated by..." Rachel's jaw tightened. "It was investigated by Internal Affairs Detective Sarah Park. The same detective who called me yesterday warning me to back off," Keisha said. "And the finding was..." Rachel flipped to the last page. "Complaint unfounded. Officer Brooks acted within departmental guidelines. Complainant declined to pursue further action." Gregory took the file. At the bottom of the final page, in small print, was a notation. "Complainant contacted by Detective S. Park. Statement retracted. Case closed." "They intimidated her into dropping it," Gregory said, his voice hard. "Park contacted her directly, probably implied there would be consequences if she continued, and Dorothy backed down." "That's not just bad investigating," Rachel said. "That's active suppression of complaints. That's obstruction." Keisha was already typing on her phone. "I'm calling Dorothy now. She needs to know her complaint was legitimate, that she wasn't wrong to file it, and that we need her to tell us what Park said to her." While Keisha stepped into the hallway to make the call, Gregory and Rachel continued reviewing the file. They found 3 more complaints against Brooks, all investigated by Internal Affairs, all closed as unfounded. 2 of the complainants had retracted their statements after being contacted by investigators. "They've been protecting him systematically," Rachel said. "Every complaint gets buried. Every investigation leads nowhere. They created a shield around him." "Because he does what the system wants," Gregory replied. "He makes arrests. He generates numbers. He targets people who won't make political trouble. From the department's perspective, he's a productive officer. Until he assaults someone on camera in front of witnesses, and that someone turns out to be you." Gregory smiled without humor. Wrong place, wrong time. For him, anyway. Keisha returned, her expression troubled. Dorothy says Detective Park called her at home, told her that pursuing the complaint could result in additional scrutiny of her own activities. Implied they might look into her prescription history, her Medicare billing, her tax returns. Dorothy has a granddaughter with special needs who relies on Dorothy's financial support. She couldn't risk it, so she retracted. That's coercion, Rachel said flatly. That's a civil rights violation by a law enforcement officer. Park isn't just protecting Brooks. She's actively participating in the harassment. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Director Harris, it's Rachel Chen. I need to brief you on a case I'm reopening. Yes, it's urgent. Sir, it involves systemic civil rights violations, evidence of obstruction by internal affairs, and it's connected to a viral video case that's all over the news. I understand. Yes, I can be there in 20 minutes. She hung up. My boss wants a full briefing. This is moving fast now. How long until we have results? Keisha asked. Depends on what we find and how much the department cooperates. But with the public attention, the documented patterns, and Gregory's credibility, I'd say weeks, not months. We're not starting from scratch. We're building on an investigation that was already solid. We just have to finish what was started 9 years ago. Gregory looked at the file boxes, the documents, the evidence of systematic abuse spanning nearly a decade. He thought of Dorothy Hayes, intimidated into silence, of Robert Chen, paying attorney fees for a false arrest, of all the people who'd suffered while he was in retirement, comfortable and safe, telling himself he'd done his job. I should have fought harder, he said. When they shut down the investigation in 2017, I should have pushed back. You did push back, Rachel reminded him. You wrote a memo recommending the case stay open. It's in the file. Your supervisors overruled you. You can't take responsibility for their decisions. But I could have gone public. I could have leaked the findings to the press. And you would have been fired, lost your pension, and accomplished nothing. Because without an active investigation, there's no follow-through. Keisha closed her notebook. Gregory, you can't change the past, but you can help finish this now. We have everything we need: evidence, witnesses, documentation, and public attention. Brooks's career is over. The question is how many others we take down with him. A text message lit up Rachel's phone. She read it and looked up, her eyes bright. The director says we have full authorization to proceed. He's assigning 3 additional investigators to work with me. We're going to audit every arrest Brooks made, interview every complainant, and reconstruct the entire timeline of misconduct. And he's requesting an external review of internal affairs to determine if there's been systematic suppression of complaints. Gregory felt something shift in his chest. Not quite hope. The damage was already done. The people already hurt. But something like resolution. Something like justice, beginning its slow, grinding work. When do we start? He asked. Rachel checked her watch. The official case reopening is effective as of 3:47 p.m. today. So I'd say we've already started. She extended her hand to Gregory, and he took it, feeling the weight of unfinished business finally being addressed. Let's finish what we started, Rachel said. And this time, Gregory replied, we finish it right. The first threat came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. Gregory was helping Evelyn into bed, adjusting her oxygen tubes and making sure her water glass was within reach, when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Heavy breathing. Then a voice, digitally distorted. You should have stayed retired, old man. Mind your own business before someone gets hurt. The line went dead. Gregory stood frozen in the bedroom doorway, phone still pressed to his ear. Evelyn looked up at him, concern crossing her face. "Greg? Who was that?" "Wrong number," he lied, forcing a smile. "Just a telemarketer." But his hands were shaking as he set the phone down. The second call came 3 hours later, pulling him from restless sleep. Same distorted voice. "Your wife looks fragile. Be a shame if something happened while you were busy playing hero." This time, Gregory didn't tell Evelyn. He sat in the darkened living room until dawn, watching the street through a gap in the curtains, his old baseball bat from his teaching days propped against the chair. At 7:30 a.m., Gregory called Rachel. "They're threatening me," he said without preamble. 2 calls last night. Anonymous, voice distorted. The second one mentioned Evelyn. Rachel's voice went cold and professional. "Did you record them?" "No, I didn't think to." "Okay. First, enable call recording on your phone right now. Second, I'm sending a patrol car to watch your house. Not Metro PD, I'm calling the county sheriff's office. Someone I trust." "Rachel, I don't want to overreact." "Gregory, this is standard retaliation tactics. You're a threat now. You've reopened an investigation that could end careers and trigger prosecutions. Of course they're going to try to intimidate you." She paused. "Have you noticed anything else? Cars parked outside your house? Anyone following you?" Gregory thought about it. "There's been a dark sedan on our street for the past 2 days. Tinted windows. I assumed it was a neighbor's guest." "What's the license plate?" I didn't get it." "Get it. Take a photo. Send it to me immediately." Rachel's tone softened slightly. "Gregory, I know this is frightening, but you can't let them scare you into silence. That's exactly what they want." After hanging up, Gregory dressed and stepped outside with his phone, pretending to check his mailbox. The dark sedan was parked 4 houses down, a Dodge Charger with Georgia plates. He managed to snap 2 photos before the engine started and the car pulled away. He sent the images to Rachel. Her response came within minutes. "Registered to A&B Security Services. Private security company. Checking ownership now." Gregory went back inside. Evelyn was awake, sitting up in bed, her face drawn with worry. "Greg, what's going on? You've been acting strange since last night." He sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. No more lies. She deserved to know. "The investigation into Officer Brooks is getting serious. Some people aren't happy about it. They're trying to scare me into backing down." Evelyn's grip tightened on his hand. "How are they trying to scare you?" "Phone calls, threats, someone watching the house." Her eyes filled with tears. "Greg, maybe we should stop. Your life, my health, is it worth it? Officer Brooks is on administrative leave already, isn't that enough?" "No," Gregory said gently. "It's not enough. Because he's just one person. The system that protected him, that enabled him to hurt people for 9 years. That system is still in place. If we stop now, someone else will do exactly what Brooks did. And nothing will change. But if something happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me. Rachel is having the sheriff's office keep watch. I'm being careful. And sweetheart, I spent 15 years investigating people far more dangerous than scared police officers covering their tracks. I know how to protect myself." Evelyn studied his face for a long moment. Then she squeezed his hand. "You're doing the right thing. You know that, don't you? Even if it's hard, even if it's scary, you're doing what you always taught your students, standing up when it matters." Gregory kissed her forehead. "Get some rest. I'll be right downstairs." At noon, Gregory met Keisha at the grindhouse. She arrived with worry etched across her face. "I got a visit this morning," she said, sliding into the booth. Two men in suits. Said they were attorneys for the Metro Police Union. They threatened me with a defamation suit if I publish anything that damages Officer Brooks's reputation without concrete evidence. "Did you record the conversation?" "Every word." Keisha pulled out her phone and played the audio. The attorneys' voices were smooth, professional, menacing. "Ms. Morrison, we understand you are conducting a campaign against our client. We want to ensure you understand the legal consequences of publishing false or misleading information. Officer Brooks has an exemplary record, and any attempt to damage his reputation will be met with swift legal action." Gregory listened to the entire recording, his investigator's instincts analyzing every word choice, every implied threat. "They're scared," he said when it finished. "This isn't about protecting Brooks. This is about protecting everyone connected to him. If Brooks goes down, he might take others with him." "What do we do?" "We do exactly what Rachel told me to do. We document everything and we don't back down." Gregory pulled out his notebook. "Have you received any other pressure? Phone calls? Emails? Anything?" Keisha nodded. "My editor got a call from the mayor's chief of staff, suggesting that the paper might want to wait until the official investigation concludes before running any stories. Implied that the city might reconsider its advertising contracts with us if we publish prematurely. Political pressure. Classic." Gregory made notes. "What did your editor say?" "She told them to go to hell. More diplomatically, but that was the message. She's been a journalist for 30 years. She knows intimidation when she sees it." Gregory's phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Got ownership info on security company. You need to see this. Can you come to my office?" 20 minutes later, Gregory and Keisha stood in Rachel's office staring at a whiteboard covered with names and connecting lines. A conspiracy web that made Gregory's stomach turn. A&B Security Services, Rachel said, pointing to a name at the center of the board, is owned by Marcus DeLuca. "The other officer from Callahan's unit," Keisha breathed. "Exactly. He left Metro PD in 2019 and started the security company. And look at his client list." Rachel pointed to several names on the board. 3 private security contracts with the city, 2 contracts providing security for police union events, and 1 consulting contract with Metro PD's Internal Affairs Division. Gregory felt cold understanding wash over him. He's still connected to the department, still part of the network. "And it gets worse," Rachel continued. "Detective Sarah Park, the IA investigator who's been burying complaints about Brooks, her husband works for A&B Security." The web of connections suddenly became clear. Brooks, DeLuca, Park, all linked, all protecting each other, all benefiting from a system that allowed them to target vulnerable people without consequences. "They're watching you because DeLuca sent them," Rachel said. "He knows if Brooks falls, the investigation will eventually lead to him. And if he falls, it exposes Park's role in covering up complaints. This is bigger than we thought." "How much bigger?" Keisha asked, her pen flying across her notebook. Rachel pulled up a file on her computer. "I've been running financial analysis. Over the past 5 years, A&B Security has received $2.3 million in contracts from the city. DeLuca has personally donated $50,000 to various political campaigns, including the mayor's re-election fund. And 3 current Metro PD officers work part-time for A&B Security." "It's a patronage network," Gregory said. "DeLuca takes care of the department. The department takes care of him and everyone profits. Anyone who threatens the arrangement gets squeezed out. His phone rang. Another unknown number. This time he had recording enabled. Gregory Williams speaking. Mr. Williams. A different voice, not distorted. Calm, professional, male. My name is Chief Deputy Marcus Thompson. I'm calling on behalf of some concerned citizens who think you might be making a mistake. What kind of mistake? The kind where a man in your position, with a sick wife and a comfortable retirement, decides to throw it all away chasing ghosts from old cases. Officer Brooks made an error in judgment. He's been disciplined. There's no need to drag this out and create problems for everyone. Problems for who, exactly? For you, Mr. Williams. For your family. For the community. These investigations, they stir up division. They damage trust in law enforcement. And sometimes people who push too hard find that their own past gets scrutinized. I'd hate for anyone to start asking questions about your retirement, your pension, your old wife's medical care. The threat was clear. Play along, or we'll destroy everything you have. Gregory's hand tightened on the phone. Chief Deputy Thompson, I assume you're recording this conversation. So am I. And I want to make something very clear. I spent 15 years investigating corruption. I'm very good at it. Every threat you make, every intimidation tactic you try, I document. And it all becomes evidence. This isn't a threat, Mr. Williams. This is friendly advice. Then here's my friendly response. Tell whoever sent you to call me that I'm not backing down. The investigation continues, and every attempt to intimidate me just adds another charge to the eventual indictment. He hung up. Keisha stared at him. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Probably, Gregory admitted, but I meant every word. Rachel was already on her phone. I'm calling Director Harris. They've escalated to direct contact. That means they're desperate. She paused, listening. Yes, sir. They just called him. No, he handled it perfectly. Yes, I'll forward the recording immediately. When she hung up, she looked at Gregory with something like admiration. The director wants you in protective custody. Absolutely not. Evelyn needs me at home. Then we're putting sheriff's deputies outside your house 24/7. Non-negotiable. Rachel's expression was fierce. Gregory, they're not playing games anymore. This is serious. I know it's serious, Gregory replied. That's why we can't stop now. They're threatening us because we're close to something they can't afford to have exposed, which means we keep pushing. That evening, a sheriff's cruiser parked outside Gregory's house. Two deputies introduced themselves, Officer Martinez and Officer Kowalski, both professional and reassuring. They would work in 8-hour shifts, maintaining a visible presence. Gregory and Evelyn ate dinner together in relative silence. The weight of what he'd set in motion pressed down on him. People were scared enough to threaten him, to surveil his house, to try to intimidate a journalist and pressure a newspaper. The corruption ran deeper than he'd imagined. After dinner, his phone rang again. This time it was Dorothy Hayes, the elderly woman who'd filed the complaint against Brooks. Mr. Williams, I just got a call. A man saying he was from Medicare fraud investigation. He said they'd received allegations about my prescription billing, and they needed to audit my records. He asked me very specific questions about the complaint I filed against Officer Brooks. He wanted to know if I was still planning to testify. Gregory closed his eyes. Dorothy, that wasn't from Medicare. That was harassment. Did you get a callback number? He said he'd call me back tomorrow to schedule the audit. Her voice trembled. Mr. Williams, I can't afford an audit. If they find even a small mistake, they could cut off my benefits. My granddaughter needs— Dorothy, listen to me. There is no audit. This isn't intimidation. I need you to call Investigator Rachel Chen immediately. He gave her the number. Tell her everything. She'll document it and she'll make sure you're protected. After he hung up, Gregory found Evelyn standing in the doorway, oxygen tubes trailing behind her. How many people are they threatening? She asked. I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. She moved slowly into his arms. I'm proud of you, and I'm terrified for you, both at the same time. I know, sweetheart. I know. That night, Gregory sat at his computer and wrote out everything. Every call, every threat, every intimidation attempt. He created a timeline, noted patterns, identified the escalation. This was what he'd done for 15 years. Take chaos and turn it into evidence. At 2 a.m., he sent the document to Rachel with a single line. They're not just protecting Brooks. They're protecting an entire network. We need to expose all of it. Her response came immediately, as if she'd been waiting. Agreed. Tomorrow we go on offense. Gregory looked out the window at the sheriff's cruiser, at the quiet street where he'd lived peacefully for decades, now transformed into a battleground. He thought about all the people like Dorothy Hayes, living in fear because they'd tried to speak truth to power. He thought about the system that had protected corruption for so long. And he thought about his students, years ago, learning about the civil rights movement, asking him why people took such risks. Because some things are worth fighting for, he'd told them. Because silence in the face of injustice is itself a form of injustice. Now, finally, he understood what those words truly cost. But he also understood why they mattered. Tomorrow, they would fight back. The Oakmont Community Center had seen better days. The linoleum floors were scuffed from decades of use. The folding chairs had wobbly legs, and the fluorescent lights hummed with electrical fatigue. But on this Saturday morning, the room filled with a kind of energy that transcended its worn appearance. 73 people showed up. 73 elderly Black residents from Oakmont, Riverside Heights, and Pinewood Gardens. They came with canes and walkers, with oxygen tanks and hearing aids, with grandchildren helping them navigate the steps. And they came with stories. Gregory stood at the front of the room beside Keisha and Rachel, watching faces file in, faces lined with age and experience, eyes that had seen segregation and integration, voices that had learned when to speak and when to stay silent for survival. Dorothy Hayes arrived early, supporting herself on her daughter's arm. She wore her Sunday best, a purple dress and pearl necklace, as if she were testifying in court. In a way, she was. Mr. Williams, she said, gripping his hand with surprising strength. Thank you for doing this, for letting us to tell our stories together. You're the one doing something brave, Gregory replied. I'm just here to listen. Robert Chen wheeled himself to the front row, his grandson pushing his wheelchair. At 81, his hands shook with Parkinson's, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Behind him came Patricia Owens, the woman arrested in her own driveway. She brought 3 friends, all with their own encounters with Officer Brooks. By 10 a.m., every seat was filled and people lined the walls. Rachel stood and called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. My name is Rachel Chen, and I'm an investigator with the Georgia State Accountability Commission. This is an official evidence-gathering session. Everything said here today will be documented and may be used in ongoing investigations and potential prosecutions. She paused, letting that sink in. I know many of you have been afraid to speak up, I know some of you filed complaints that went nowhere. I know you've been told that nothing would change, that your word wouldn't matter against police officers." Rachel's voice strengthened. "But I'm here to tell you that your voices matter. Your experiences matter. And together, your stories create a pattern that cannot be ignored." Keisha stood next. "I'm Keisha Morrison, investigative reporter with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I've been documenting cases of police misconduct for 15 years. What's happening here today is important not just for your community, but for holding a system accountable. With your permission, I'll be recording testimony and taking notes for a comprehensive article." Then Gregory spoke. "Most of you know what happened to me at Riverside Pharmacy. But what you might not know is that I used to investigate cases like this. Cases where law enforcement abuses power and targets vulnerable people. I thought I was done with that work. I thought I'd earned my retirement." He looked across the room. "But then I realized, retirement is a luxury. Justice is a necessity. And if I stay silent now, I'm complicit in a system that's hurt too many people like us." Dorothy Hayes raised her hand. "Mr. Williams, what happens if we tell our stories and nothing changes? What if they just cover it up again?" It was the question everyone was thinking. "That's a fair concern," Gregory said. "I won't lie to you. The system has protected itself before. But this time is different. We have documentation. We have video evidence. We have a journalist who won't let the story die. And most importantly, we have each other. They can silence one voice. They can't silence 73. Rachel pulled out a legal pad. "Who wants to go first?" For a moment, no one moved. The weight of years spent being told their complaints didn't matter, their voices didn't count, held them back. Then Dorothy Hayes stood. "I'll go first," she said, her voice steady. "My name is Dorothy May Hayes. I am 76 years old, and 14 months ago, Officer John Brooks arrested me for a crime I didn't commit." She walked to the front, and as she told her story, something shifted in the room. The fear that had kept people silent began to crack. "I was leaving Walgreens with my prescriptions, blood pressure medication and insulin. Officer Brooks stopped me in the parking lot. He said I looked suspicious. He searched my bags without permission and found my medications in their legitimate prescription bottles with my name on them. Then he said the quantities didn't match the labels and arrested me for drug diversion." Dorothy's voice wavered but didn't break. "I spent 4 hours at the police station. They wouldn't let me call my daughter. They wouldn't let me take my medication, even though I told them I was diabetic. By the time they released me out, my blood sugar had dropped dangerously low. The charges were dropped 3 weeks later, but I spent $1,200 on a lawyer. And when I tried to file a complaint, a detective called me at home and said if I pursued it, they'd have to investigate my prescription history and my Medicare billing." She looked directly at Rachel. "I was terrified. I have a granddaughter with special needs who depends on me. I couldn't risk losing my benefits. So I dropped the complaint." Her voice hardened. "But I'm not dropping it anymore." The room erupted in applause. Gregory felt tears in his eyes as Dorothy returned to her seat, her head high. Robert Chen wheeled forward next. "My name is Robert Chen. Officer Brooks arrested me outside CVS 19 months ago. Said I was loitering. I was waiting for my prescription. I have Parkinson's disease and it takes me time to move. He handcuffed me in front of other customers, made me sit on the curb like a criminal while he investigated whether my prescription was legitimate. It was. The charges were dropped. But I still have nightmares about being handcuffed in public." After Robert came Patricia Owens, then James Mitchell, a 78-year-old veteran who'd been arrested for disorderly conduct after questioning why Brooks was searching his car during a routine traffic stop. Then Alice Freeman, who'd been accused of prescription fraud at a Rite Aid, where she'd been getting her medications for 20 years. One by one, they came forward. Each story followed the same pattern. Elderly, black, targeted at pharmacies or medical facilities, arrested on baseless charges. Charges later dropped, complaints buried. Some had been physically roughed up. Others had been humiliated verbally. All had been made to feel like criminals for the simple act of trying to maintain their health. By noon, 23 people had testified. Rachel's legal pad was filled with notes. Keisha's recorder was full of testimony. And Gregory had documented every common element, every pattern, every detail that proved this wasn't random. It was systematic. During lunch break, an elderly man named William Foster approached Gregory privately. "Mr. Williams, I didn't sign up to testify because I'm afraid," he admitted. "But I need to tell someone. Officer Brooks arrested my wife 3 years ago. She had dementia. She was confused at the pharmacy, couldn't remember her address for the prescription pickup. Brooks said she was trying to commit fraud and arrested her. She died 6 months later. The stress of the arrest, the court dates, the fear, it accelerated her decline." Gregory put a hand on the man's shoulder. "William, I'm so sorry. Would you be willing to tell this to Investigator Chen? I can't testify in person, but I kept all the documents, arrest records, medical reports, everything." His hands shook. "My wife didn't deserve to spend her last months terrified of police. I want her story told." "It will be," Gregory promised. "I give you my word." The afternoon session brought 20 more testimonies. Each story added another layer of evidence, another data point in a pattern of abuse. Some stories were recent, within the past year. Others stretched back to 2017, shortly after Brooks transferred from Callahan's unit. Then an unexpected voice spoke up. A white woman in her late 60s stood. "My name is Linda Martinez," she said quietly. The room went silent. Gregory recognized her immediately. The officer who'd testified against Callahan 8 years ago. The one who'd been granted immunity. "I don't live in this community," Linda continued, "but I read about the meeting and I felt I had to come. I worked with Officer Brooks in Sergeant Callahan's unit. I testified against Callahan, but I didn't tell the whole truth about Brooks. I was afraid of retaliation, afraid of losing my career." She looked directly at Gregory. "Mr. Williams, you interviewed me back then. I told you I didn't know if Brooks was actively participating in Callahan's scheme. That was a lie. I knew. I saw him target elderly residents. I heard him laugh about how easy it was to intimidate them into dropping complaints." Her voice broke. "I stayed silent because I wanted to keep my job. I told myself that testifying against Callahan was enough. But it wasn't. Brooks kept operating, kept hurting people, and I could have stopped it." She turned to face the room. "I'm here to say I was wrong. I'm here to give a supplemental statement with the full truth. And I'm here to apologize to every person in this room who suffered, because I didn't have the courage you're showing today." The room remained silent for a long moment. Then Dorothy Hayes stood and walked to Linda Martinez. She took the former officer's hands. "Thank you for coming," Dorothy said simply. "Thank you for telling the truth now." Others stood. Slowly, one by one, forming a line to shake Linda's hand, to acknowledge her courage in coming forward, to accept her apology. Gregory watched, humbled by the grace of people who had every right to be angry, but chose understanding instead. By 4 p.m., The testimony was complete. 46 people had told their stories on record. Others had provided written statements. Linda Martinez had given Rachel a detailed account of Brooks's tactics and the culture within Callahan's unit. Rachel stood to address the crowd. What happened here today is historic. You've provided documentation of systematic civil rights violations spanning 8 years. This evidence will be the foundation of multiple investigations and prosecutions. But more than that, you've shown that courage is contagious. One person speaking up gave others permission to speak. And now your collective voice is too loud to ignore. She paused, her professional composure cracking slightly. I promise you, every story will be investigated. Every complaint will be revisited. Every person who covered up wrongdoing will be held accountable. This is not going to be buried again. As people filed out, Gregory noticed several were crying, not from sadness, but from relief. The burden of silence, carried for so long, was finally lifted. Keisha pulled Gregory aside. I have enough material here for a 10-part series. This isn't just about Brooks anymore. This is about institutionalized targeting of vulnerable populations. This is about a system that profits from intimidating the powerless. When will you publish? Gregory asked. First article goes live tomorrow morning. I've already cleared it with my editor. We're running with everything. The testimonies, the patterns, the cover-up, all of it. They're going to come after you hard. Let them try. Keisha's expression was fierce. I've got 46 witnesses, documentary evidence, and a retired police officer willing to go on record. They can threaten me all they want. The truth is already written. That evening, Gregory sat with Evelyn in their living room, the sheriff's deputy still stationed outside. He told her about the testimony, about the courage he'd witnessed, about people finding their voices after years of enforced silence. You did that, Evelyn said. You gave them permission to speak. I just showed up, Gregory replied. They're the ones who chose courage. His phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. 46 testimonies. 8 years of documented abuse. Multiple civil rights violations. Brooks is finished, but we're just getting started on the rest of them. Then a text from Dorothy Hayes. Thank you for believing us. Thank you for making our voices matter. And finally, a text from Linda Martinez. I should have done this 8 years ago. Thank you for giving me a chance to tell the truth. Gregory set his phone down and looked at Evelyn. It's really happening. We're actually going to change something. Of course you are, she said, taking his hand. That's what you do. That's what you've always done. Outside, the sun set over Oakmont, casting long shadows across streets where elderly residents had lived in quiet fear for too long. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, 73 people slept, knowing their voices had been heard, their stories had been told, their truth had been documented. And tomorrow, the world would hear it too. Tomorrow, there would be no more silence. The municipal chamber was a pressure cooker of stifled rage and held breath. Every seat was filled, a mosaic of wrinkled hands clasped in laps, young activists with steely eyes, and uniformed officials whose faces were carved from stone. Camera lights bathed the long oak table where Gregory Williams sat, a glass of water and a single, slim folder before him. Across the aisle, Officer John Brooks, stripped of his patrol gear and swimming in a cheap suit, refused to look up from his own hands. The hearing officer, a weary-eyed judge named Alvarez, called the room to order. We are here, she began, her voice echoing in the silence, to ascertain the facts surrounding the arrest of Mr. Gregory Williams and the subsequent allegations of systemic misconduct within the 4th Precinct. One by one, witnesses took the stand. A pharmacy clerk, voice trembling, described the sound of Gregory's cane clattering on tile. A high school teacher played a cell phone video on the overhead screen. The shove, the scattered pills, Brooks's snarling profile. Each testimony was a brick, building a wall of damning evidence. The precinct captain spoke next, a rehearsed soliloquy about isolated incidents and ongoing internal reviews. His words evaporated in the room's heat. Then, they called Gregory. He rose slowly, the rustle of his suit the only sound. He did not approach the witness stand. Instead, he turned to face the crowd, and then Brooks, his posture not of an accuser, but of a scholar about to deliver a devastating thesis. For most of my life, Gregory started, his soft voice amplified by the absolute quiet. I believed in the architecture of institutions. I spent my career examining their blueprints, looking for cracks where corruption could seep in. I avoided loud noises, sudden movements. I thought my silence was a kind of mortar, holding my world together. He paused, his gaze settling on Brooks. Officer Brooks mistook that silence for weakness. He saw an old man, an easy number. He did not see a keeper of records. Gregory opened his folder. The arrest report Officer Brooks filed states I was agitated, possessed narcotics not in the prescription bottle, and resisted. This is a forgery. He placed a copy on the table. The pharmacy's security footage, which you've seen, proves it, but this forgery is not an anomaly. It is a pattern. A screen lit up behind him. Graphs and charts, compiled by the investigative journalist, painted a stark picture. Brooks's arrest rates spiked every quarter's end. 92% of his drug diversion arrests were black seniors. All followed nearly identical report language. These, Gregory said, pointing, are not police reports. They are quota receipts. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Judge Alvarez banged her gavel, but her eyes were fixed on the data. Then Gregory played an audio file. A garbled, digitized voice, a whistleblower from the precinct, spoke. The captain said, "Bring me bodies before Friday. Empty chairs don't get federal grants." Brooks always knew where to find them. The old folks at the clinic, the pharmacy. They don't fight, they just crumble. Brooks's head snapped up, his face ashen. You targeted us, Gregory continued, his voice gaining a resonant, terrible power, because you calculated our silence. You bet on our fear, our frailty, our desire to just go home to our sick spouses. You bet wrong. He then placed the final document on the table, a faded cover sheet from the State Accountability Commission. Case number 4471. 8 years ago, I led an audit of the 4th Precinct. I uncovered evidence of coerced confessions, evidence tampering, and a clandestine performance quota system. Before we could subpoena key officers, the case was buried. Pressure from above. Gregory locked eyes with Brooks. Officer John Brooks was a junior patrolman named in that initial audit. His name is right here. The room erupted. Brooks's lawyer gripped his arm, whispering furiously. Judge Alvarez called for order, her voice sharp. Officer Brooks, given the evidence, do you wish to amend your testimony? All eyes turned to Brooks. The camera lights felt like physical weights. He looked at his captain, who stared straight ahead, abandoning him to the tide. He saw the row of elderly black men and women in the front row, their gazes unwavering. He saw Gregory, standing with a quiet, unassailable dignity. Brooks's facade shattered. His shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. I followed directives, he choked out. The quotas. They were real, the reports. We were told to make them fit. He put his head in his hands. I resign. I resign from it all. A gasp swept the room, followed by a torrent of shouts. But Gregory raised his hand. The room slowly stilled. A resignation is not justice, Gregory declared, his voice cutting through the noise. It is an exit. This is not about one man's badge. It is about a system that told him that man was worth more as a number than as a guardian. I do not want Officer Brooks' job. I want the machinery that created him dismantled. I want the captains who gave the orders, the commissioners who looked away, and the policy that values statistics over souls, all of it brought into this light. He turned to Judge Alvarez. Your Honor, the easy arrest is over. Now begins the hard accountability. The fallout was a quake that reshaped the landscape. Brooks's resignation was the first domino. The subsequent federal and state investigation, fueled by Gregory's file and the journalist's work, toppled many more. The precinct captain was indicted for conspiracy and official misconduct. The department's quota system was formally abolished. Its budget restructured to decouple funding from arrest metrics. A new community oversight board, with teeth and transparency, was established. Its first member, a soft-spoken 72-year-old with a master's eye for bureaucratic rot. On a cool, bright morning, Gregory Williams walked slowly down his porch steps, not with his cane, but with his wife, Eleanor, on his arm. Color had returned to her cheeks, her recovery no longer hampered by the cold dread that had once filled their home. The intimidation calls had ceased, the mysterious patrol cars gone for good. The silence around their house was peaceful now, not pregnant with threat. You sure you're ready for this? Eleanor asked, squeezing his arm. Long overdue, he replied, patting her hand. Their destination was the neighborhood pharmacy. As he pushed through the same door, a hush fell over the store. Then, it broke into a wave of quiet applause. The clerk from that terrible day came around the counter, her eyes wet. Mr. Williams, your order is ready. And it's on the house today. From all of us. Gregory smiled, a warm, gracious thing. That's kind, but I'll pay. We look after each other. That's how it should be. As he waited, a young black mother with a toddler on her hip approached him tentatively. Mr. Williams, I wanted to thank you. For my grandfather and for my son. Gregory nodded, a profound understanding passing between them. His fight had carved out a safer space for the generations that bookended his own. Later, in his home study, surrounded by his history books and the framed commendations from the state, he met with the journalist and a young state senator. They were drafting Gregory's Law, a bipartisan bill mandating strict independent audits of police precincts and creating a special advocate's office for elderly victims of predatory policing. You've given us the blueprint, the senator said. I just provided the evidence, Gregory corrected gently. You all must build the better house. After they left, he sat in his favorite armchair. Eleanor brought him tea. The evening news played softly, reporting on the first wave of reforms. He was not hailed as a fiery revolutionary, but as a steadfast revealer of truth. A man who, when pushed, did not push back with chaos, but with the irresistible weight of fact. He had not sought this role. He was a retired man who loved his wife and his books. But in unmasking a system that preyed on the quiet, He had found a different kind of strength, not in loud confrontation, but in resonant, undeniable testimony. The soft-spoken grandfather had become the system's most formidable auditor. He took a sip of tea, the warmth spreading through him. Outside, the neighborhood children played in the fading light, their shouts joyful and unafraid. Inside, his world was whole and quiet and safe. The battle had been fierce, but the peace, he thought, looking at Eleanor's contented face, was truly powerful.